The Byakugan, in terms of the Naruto mythos, had been buried inside a very, very large pile of cow manure up until this chapter. Like, up until this chapter, Kishi decided to stick his hand into the shit, take out the Byakugan, clean it up a bit, and make it big again. The mother of all shinobi had the Byakugan for eyes. In this chapter, Naruto and Sasuke get a visit from the Sage of the Six Paths. But what is not shown, alright, is that Kaguya also visited Hinata. Therefore, the next time we see Hinata, because she tripped, she fell unconscious, she got dehydrated, whatever. She was unconscious, Kaguya visited Hinata, and next time we see Hinata, she'll have a power-up too. It'll be called Playboy Bunny Mode. Speaking of Hyugas, there's a part in this chapter that really reminded me of Neji. Because there's this part where, like, the Sage of the Six Paths is talking to the Tailed Beasts, and the Tailed Beasts are like, hey, is this the kid of the prophecy? And the Sage is like, yep, this is the kid from the prophecy. So if I go back to part 1, back when Naruto's fighting Neji, Neji's like, don't be foolish, Naruto. You cannot change who you're destined to become. And Naruto's like, hell yeah, I can. And I'm like, well, technically, Naruto, you don't really need to change a whole lot. Because in that point in time, you're already the child of the prophecy. The prophecy spoke about a kid with blue eyes. So unless you've been wearing contacts all this time, you're good. If you look at the chapter objectively, you'll find that there are a couple of things that were very predictable. Number 1, Sasuke being Indra's reincarnation. Very predictable, very obvious. Number 2, Hashirama and Madara being Ashura's and Indra's reincarnation. Obvious as well. Number 3, Naruto getting a power-up by absorbing or having all of the Tailed Beast's chakra. Like, that was also obvious. However, there were a number of things that were not obvious and surprised the heck out of me. So whenever I'm reading something and it surprises me, it just makes me smile. It's just a good feeling. And the surprises in this chapter started with those fantastic color pages in the beginning. Another thing that I really liked is how the Sage tells the story of how Madara introduced a problem in the lineage of Indra and Ashura, because in his power hungriness, in his lust for absolute power, which, by the way, was foreseen by the Indra reincarnations. That's why the tablet was there to just say, yep, this is gonna fucking happen, man. We're just too power hungry. But what I like about it is that if you think about it, Madara could be quoted as recreating the Rinnegan, because that shit should have died with the Sage of the Six Paths. It was only because Madara took part Senju, part Uchiha. He was an Uchiha. He combined the two and he was able to awaken the Rinnegan. But then again, he didn't awaken it, he created it for himself. That's some badass shit. And by the way, Sasuke has to show up with the Rinnegan next week. It just has to happen. And speaking of Sasuke, shouldn't he have been talking to the brother of the Sage of the Six Paths, not the Sage of the Six Paths? The brother was briefly referenced last week, to the point where it was like, why didn't you say anything about the brother? It's like, because he came out of nowhere. And then it just said like, oh, he absorbed part of the Jubbi. Am I to understand that there's another half of the Jubbi running around? Then again, that kind of makes me think that maybe Kaguya had 2 sons intentionally, so that she could divide this enormous amount of power that she was gaining and that eventually corrupted her. Listen, I understand siblings are important. I really do. But it's like, the saying, bros before hoes? Kishimoto adopted the saying, bros before plot hoes. There's too many Nissans in the historical setup of this manga. Like, there's just Tobirama, Hashirama, Ashura, Indra, Sage of the Six Paths, Sage of the Six Paths brother, Itachi and Sasuke, for crying out loud. And then, but I like the fact that by the end of this chapter, Naruto's like, the good thing about me and Sasuke is that we're not bros. Sasuke! There's also like this really cool explanation from the Sage in terms of what Infinite Tsukuyomi would actually do. And initially I thought like people would just be walking around just like, with their eyes up and shit, looking like zombies. But it turns out that they would eventually like fall asleep. And they would be dreaming. I never thought about, it's kind of stupid, I never thought about them actually being asleep to dream, but whatever. And they would also be connected to the tree, and the tree would absorb their chakra. Isn't that something? The entire human race wiped out by a fucking tree. I rarely talk about the art, but this chapter artistically is amazing. It's like Kishimoto really thought this through in terms of how he was going to structure each of these panels and how they were going to look. Some of the best examples of the art is like when you have like Naruto and Sasuke and then the sage in the middle. That was just beautiful. Also, when you have Naruto and the sage in like inside of the circle, surrounded by the bijous, also great. That, I mean, we've seen that before, but it was just such a nice reference to when the sage decided to, you know, just leave the bijous. And then finally, when you have Naruto acknowledging that he's fighting for his friends, and you see all of the shinobi in the background. There's some pretty good dialogue in this chapter as well. Like there's this one part where Naruto says like, so Sage, you've been watching us fight each other, you know, for all this time. You've seen all the hate that is out there, and you know that this infinite Tsukuyomi is going to lead to a massive onion, you know, that consumes all of us, and you still have faith in us. Thank you for that. That's some deep shit. And then the sage is like, shut up, Gamamaru. I want my Gerber. That's right, folks. Gamamaru. Who is he? Like, people are saying, oh, he's like one of the ancestors of the toads that were able to make prophecies. I'm like, no. The name Gamamaru obviously is a reference to Akamaru's great-great-grandfather. Because we all know that before dogs were able to live with humans peacefully, there was a dog in a mountain making prophecies every time he took a shit. High five, boys. Go kick Madara's ass. Beam of light hits the guys, and we transition over to Madara versus Guy. And oh, do they look jacked up. Madara is has like a string of blood just coming out of his mouth, and his headband horn thing is broken. Guy doesn't look any better, like to the point where I'm thinking, what the hell did we miss? I mean, did he use a technique called the Jungle Book? I mean, yeah, because you have to use Jungle Book in order to use Jumanji, and if Jumanji doesn't work, then you have to use Night Guy. And Night Guy, among other things, it's a technique, but it's also the way that Lee was conceived. It's a setup chapter intertwined with an exposition sort of deal, because you have a lot of dialogue that explains a lot of the historical background of the story. Progress-wise, I thought it was good, but the art, I think that's what, to me, that's what made this chapter so amazing and just really powerful, especially by the ending. Tell me your thoughts, rate the video, subscribe to my channel if you haven't, and if you could do me a favor and follow me on Google+, I'll leave a link down in the description. I would really appreciate that. Thank you. Bye, guys.